Thank you. Kelly and I are excited to be here to talk about content marketing with you today. And as Ben shared, the focus of our webinar is really going to be diving into some of the tactics behind successful content marketing. The tips we're sharing will be most effective when your organization already has a strategy in place. And you can learn more about that in the content marketing book that was just mentioned at the top of this webinar. So everything we're talking about today should feed into your overarching plan to use digital content to support your organizational goals. But before we dive into those tactics, let's make sure that we're all working with a common definition of content marketing. Because if there's one thing we've learned over the years, it's that if you ask 20 people what content marketing is, you'll likely get 20 slightly different answers. Some consider all digital content part of their content marketing, while others are talking about specific types of content in specific areas of their website. So this is the definition that we use when we're talking about content marketing today. We define content marketing as a strategic marketing approach focused on creating and sharing valuable, relevant, and consistent digital content that doesn't explicitly promote a brand, but is intended to stimulate the interest of a clearly defined audience in products or services. So this separates content marketing from your website's foundational content, those core pages that are describing your services, your locations, your providers, your patient policies. Those foundational pages really focus on reaching healthcare consumers at the moments that they're deciding where to get care and figuring out how to access that care, whether that's through virtual or in-person appointments. At those points in time, consumers really want to know things like, what services do you offer? Where are you located? What symptoms or conditions can be treated through telemedicine? What makes this hospital the best choice for care for me and my family? Content marketing, on the other hand, hits a slightly different stage of the patient journey. It lets us expand our reach to consumers' everyday lives so we can nurture those long-term relationships and build trust ahead of those critical decision-making moments. So this is where we can share stories about preventative care, wellness, personal stories, and navigating that healthcare system. Content marketing is especially helpful for organizations who want to build content around wellness, prevention, and ties in really well with initiatives around population health. That's because the type of content that works well in content marketing for healthcare often helps people in your community adopt healthier behaviors and evidence-based health prevention strategies. Now, another key point from that definition that we use about content marketing is that it's not the same as news. Sorry about that. All right, so content marketing is really focused on your audience. It's focused on what their needs and the things that they're already out there looking for information about when they're on their smartphones or browsing the web on their desktop computers. News, on the other hand, is very focused on your organization and the type of things that you want to share about what makes you such a great place. Content marketing is primarily there to educate, entertain, or inspire, while news is primarily there to promote. You have a specific message that you're trying to get out about your organization. Content marketing is designed to pull audiences in, to understand what they're interested in and capitalize on that with the content that you're delivering. News, on the other hand, is really there to push information out. Content marketing, as we saw with that patient journey example, is really intended to nurture long-term relationships and build trust over time. News, on the other hand, is generally intended to attract immediate attention, to let people know about something noteworthy that just happened or is happening in the near future. Content marketing is written for the interests, needs, and preferences of a specific audience. If you download that content marketing book, you'll find some more information around personas and patient journeys that would be taken into account in a good content marketing strategy. News, on the other hand, is generally written for a general audience in your community. And one of the great things, of course, about content marketing is that there's so many different formats that it can take, whether it's a listicle, a podcast, or more traditional blog article approach. News, on the other hand, has more limited formats. You tend to see a traditional news story or a press release. And finally, because of all these differences, we measure success in slightly different ways. So your content marketing success might be measured by website traffic, social shares, form completions, depending on your individual goals and strategy for your content marketing. While we know news is often measured by things like press mentions or media placement. So I'm going to share with you a couple of an example of how one organization approached the same topic as a news article and as a content marketing article. So what you're seeing on the screen now is the news release for Cone Health's annual Women's Only 5K. So, you know, if you read through it, you'll see that it reads like a traditional news or press release. It's organization focused. It's promoting this annual race. It's intended to attract immediate attention because they want people to get on their website and register for this event. It was, you know, the perfect format for this purpose. But then they complemented this with a content marketing article as well. So this article still promotes this 5K, but if you look at this story, you'll see that it's down at the bottom of the page. It's promoting the event in a much more subtle way, and only after it addresses the audience's interests and questions by highlighting 5 tips for preparing for a 5K. It also spotlights an expert in the organization, and we'll talk a little bit more about this and how you can do this effectively as you're writing these articles. But before we get into writing, I'm going to let Kelly jump in and talk about getting topics for those articles.
Yes, so a big piece of content marketing and the behind the scenes of that is the upfront work of keyword research. We'll talk through the importance of uncovering queries that users are searching for and how keyword research can guide your overall strategy. First, let's take a step back for a minute to address story ideas in general. The best story ideas for healthcare blogs and content marketing hubs consider a variety of factors, such as your brand and your brand's goals. Just because a term or topic may have a high search volume, you still want to make sure your story ideas match or align with your brand standards and brand voice. Ask yourself, what's the purpose of your content marketing? Is it to position your organization as a thought leader? Is it to increase patient volume, capture emails, and increase click-through rates? Or is it a more personal way to connect with your audience? I'm willing to guess for most of us, it's a little bit of all the above, but whatever the goal of your content marketing blog or hub may be, keep it top of mind when creating content and be sure that each asset can tie back to that overarching goal that you have. Another factor is audience insights. Who is your audience? What are their pain points? What information do they need to help them alleviate those pain points? And how can you help them make those decisions? Engagement and impact data. Sometimes it's not all about getting that conversion. Sometimes it might be more about making a connection with your audience and letting them know, letting them get to know your brand. So while the bottom of the funnel content, think scheduling an appointment or the patient acquisition bottom of the funnel, that's usually the ultimate goal and the bread and butter for organizations. But informative and creative content is often the honeypot that can draw folks into your organization and keep you top of mind throughout their journey. Keyword research should be a big part of your content marketing strategy, but all this to say it shouldn't be the only factor. The best content is where all these intersect right here in the middle, the sweet spot for generating your story ideas and writing for content marketing. So we'll get this question out of the way. What is keyword research? Keyword research is the process of identifying which terms or phrases your target audience uses to search for your services or content in search engines. When users have a specific query they need answers to, they head to a search engine to type in a word or a set of words. Google then searches to find content that matches those sets of words and how well it answers the query and delivers that content to the user. So the better the content is related to that search input, the higher that content will appear. And to make your content relevant and valuable to what people are searching, you want to answer the questions that users actually care about. This may seem overly simple, but it's something that's often overlooked. You'd be surprised how many marketers assume they might know their audience and don't feel the need to look into the data of what their audience really wants to know or what they're really asking. So looking at questions people are asking and how they're asking them helps you analyze user behavior in order to identify which keywords to target and understand if your content is satisfying a searcher's intent. We'll focus on the digital research side of listening to your audience, but another thing you could do is also write down any frequently asked questions that you're hearing from your clinics or your doctors that patients are asking throughout a given month. And if it's a common topic, you could turn that into a blog post or a video or something to answer that wider question. Before we can answer their questions, we need to know what questions users are asking. Google Search Console is a great first step to pull back the curtain on your own website to see the top queries that are leading to impressions or clicks to your site already. You can see what questions people are searching for that your site might be getting some impressions, but maybe not getting much traffic. This is an example here of a Data Studio report, pulling in those organic search impressions and clicks from Google Search Console, that you can set up a filter by those common question queries such as who, what, when, where, why. And as I mentioned, this would be a great starting point as you're sitting down and starting to brainstorm what topics you want to write about. In this case, this query caught my eye. When should you eat pistachios before bed? It has a good amount of impressions and a few clicks since this site does have an article about bedtime snacks to help you sleep. But if people are searching for this more specific question, how can we target those searches and rank higher for that query? This example will help guide our brainstorm and keyword research process. From that same Data Studio report, we can also see that people are asking more related questions about pistachios and sleep. Do pistachios help you sleep? Why do pistachios help you sleep? What happens if you eat too many pistachios? Say, for instance, you're wanting to rank highly for sleep disorder searches or promote your sleep medicine services in the next couple of months. Not only should you have a well-constructed sleep medicine service line page as your foundational content, but you could also write a supportive blog post on the topic of sleep and getting better sleep, maybe by eating pistachios, and link it back to your care and treatment page. For this instance, we've done some searching and we've identified a topic as the first step. Our audience really does care about the benefits of eating pistachios before bed, so we want to help answer their questions. The next step is actually conducting the keyword research. You can see what keywords related to sleep have a high search volume, which is the average number of times the keyword was searched over a period of 12 months. And some of the tools we recommend using for that keyword research process are SEMrush, Keyword Finder, the Moz Keyword Explorer. Any of these can help pull broad keyword lists for your given topic. Aside from those keyword tools mentioned, Google's Auto Suggest is a surprisingly simple yet hugely effective way to figure out which keywords to target as well. The terms become more specific the deeper you go in your search. Here we can see that what other questions are being asked about pistachios to get even more ideas for topics. Or maybe you want to create content about sleep tips. Instead of writing an article about sleep tips in general, you can write something specifically, for example, about sleep for teenagers, if that's relevant to your audience. This is also a good example of when to make sure your ideas match your organizational goals or the services that you do provide. For example, through your keyword research, you might see that sleep tips for kids has a lot of search volume and related keywords. But if you don't offer pediatric sleep services, that article wouldn't really help support that foundational service line content that you would have on your site. So there's probably a better topic that you can write about. And there are always ideas out there like this. Another keyword tool that often gets overlooked is the People Also Ask feature on Google's search engine results page. So when we search for sleep tips for teens, you can get even more search suggestions for your content alongside related keywords that you could use. Parents may want to know, why isn't my teen sleeping? Or what time should my 13-year-old go to bed? Adding these question variations to your idea list, if they meet those criteria that we mentioned earlier, of aligning with your brand and its goals, the audience insights, engagement, and keyword research, you could have multiple topics here to write about down the road. Once you've exhausted your keyword research skills, it's then time to bring all that data together to look at the user journey as a whole. These are what Google refers to as micro moments in a customer journey, which can easily be applied to healthcare too. You can identify micro moments, or an intent-rich moment, as Google calls it, by recognizing times when someone has a particular type of need. Someone may need to learn something, somebody may need to get something done, or someone may need to buy something. It's about creating the content or tools to enable people to accomplish whatever they want in that particular moment. And you'll want to be present at all phases of that customer or patient journey, not just at the buying end or the conversion end of scheduling an appointment, for example, but throughout their entire decision-making process. So to do this, you can start by bucketing those similar intent keywords that you found in your research into these various touch points. We always want to put ourselves in the metaphorical shoes of the user. So for each piece of content that you may create, you'll want to stop and think, what value does this provide to the user? Where does this fall into their overall journey? In the I want to know moments, the consumer is browsing for information and researching possibilities. This is early in the conversion funnel, and although they aren't necessarily in full purchase or conversion mode, they are looking for useful information, educational resources, or inspiration. These are really powerful touchpoint opportunities for growing brand awareness and getting inside the patient's consideration set if they see you as an authoritative and trustworthy source. In the I want to go moments, someone is searching for a local business, a hospital, or a clinic, and not just getting information, but possibly making their decision or even going directly to a location. I want to do moments could come before or after the transaction. Typically, these are how-to searches, often looking for informational and educational resources. And these are opportunities to assist people on how to get things done. And finally, the I want to buy moments is the point of purchase for your consumers. They've done their research, they're familiar with your brand, and they're ready to schedule an appointment or sign up for a class. With any piece of content, you want to satisfy the need that caused someone to type that query into Google in that moment, but also give them a next step once that need is satisfied. So depending on the stage in the funnel that they're in, that next step could be to check out this related piece of content, or if they're further down in that funnel, to schedule an appointment. Overall, the key is to understand the searcher's intent for landing on that given piece of content. When creating your content, it's important to not only understand what people are searching for, but how do they want to receive that information. That's where understanding the search engine results page landscape comes in. Is it in a video, a blog post, or a recipe? You'll want to look at what features are dominating the first page of that search engine. These are important insights that can help craft the content that you build. If organic traffic to your content is important, you might not want to invest the resources in building article style content when, in this case, Google indicates that users prefer recipe results for this specific query. Keyword research can be a big undertaking, but it's only half the battle. Now you get to use the topics, keywords, and questions you identified through keyword research to create unique and useful information for your target audience that's easy for them to consume and share. So the big question is, how do you go from keywords to that content? And I'll turn it over to Anne to talk through that writing process.
Great, thanks, Kelly. So the first step would be using that keyword research and those topics to create an editorial calendar, a schedule of content, so that everyone on your team knows what's coming down the line, what kind of deadlines you have, so that you can plan for the actual writing. And once we get into writing your content, one of the first steps is choosing a length and a format for your story. So as Kelly mentioned, figuring out the right format for your content can have a big impact on how you're going to show up in search. And as a content creator, it's also really one of the most fun parts because this is where you get to brainstorm fun, interesting, unusual ways to present information about your selected topic. We have a lot more flexibility with how we write this content for the website than we do with, say, your foundational content or with a news release. Now, text-based formats have historically been the go-to for a lot of content marketing teams, and there's lots of ways to vary your presentation here. So what you're seeing on the screen right now is a list of a few popular text-based formats. So the first, opinion or personal story, is a great way to tell patient stories or to tell stories from your provider's point of view. For example, if you are using your content marketing hub to help promote your organization as a great place to work. Q&As can also be used for those opinion or personal stories, or to just answer common questions, maybe even pulling some of those pistachio-related sleep searches into one article. Listicles, of course, are kind of ubiquitous these days, but there's a good reason for that. These are those numbered lists as articles. So things like 8 ways to eat healthier. They're really easy to scan and they tend to perform well in search. How to really capitalizes on those micro moments that Kelly was describing earlier. When people want to understand how to do something, this is a great format to offer that practical advice. A roundup or curated post is where you are taking a collection of tips or content either from other sources or from your own previous blogs and healthcare marketing articles. So this can be a great way to get more mileage out of related content that you produced, over the past year. So you probably see a lot of these around, January 1st, where we have like the most popular stories this year. But they can also be used for any type of seasonal or topical roundup post. And then the last one here is an explainer. So what is or why somebody would want to better understand a certain topic. We're also seeing more teams bringing in some more multimedia formats into the mix. So these formats, as I'm sure you know, might require some more time and resources, maybe some different skill sets or people on your team, but they can be really well worth the investment when they fit into your organization's strategy, the topic at hand, and your audience's preferences. Video and infographic especially have been very popular formats. So I'm going to show you a few examples of different ways to present that same topic of food and sleep using some of these different formats that we just talked about. So the first one up here on the screen is that listicle format that we often think of with content marketing. This is an example from Cleveland Clinic's Health Essentials, which is a great place to look for inspiration for content marketing, of course. And this one is 5 foods that help you sleep. Mayo Clinic covered a similar topic in a slightly different way on their site, recording a audio feature about eating before bedtime and making it part of their Radio Health Minute series. From Brigham and Women's Hospital, we see a video approach where they have interviewed one of their providers and put together a video with healthy sleep tips, which does include some tips around what to eat before bedtime. And then my last example here is a personal story, exactly how I changed my diet to sleep better. Now, this one, of course, is not from a content marketing, not from a healthcare organization. This comes from Prevention Magazine. But we wanted to include this because it is a great example of how we're using more of a magazine or feature type story format with content marketing. So looking at resources like this, like Prevention Magazine, can be a great inspiration for different ways to focus your topics, different angles to take than you might traditionally in healthcare marketing. Now, one of the big questions that we get is how long should our content marketing articles be? And nobody likes to hear this answer, but it depends. So number one is focus on quality first. Whether your article is long or short, it's not going to perform well if you don't have high quality behind your content. Second, consider the purpose, subject, format, and audience. So there are some subjects that you can adequately cover in less words and some that need a little more time and depth to explain. And as you consider your audience, think too about their time. We know that if you have someone who you're targeting who's maybe very busy and prefers to receive information that's very straightforward, you probably want to write something a little bit shorter. There's also been some research done around optimal lengths if your goal is for organic traffic. So some industry research went out, they looked at article lengths and where they ranked in those Google search results and found that for these different types of articles that you're seeing on the screen over here on the right, the ones that ranked highest in search tended to be around these word counts that you're seeing here. So how-to articles that ranked highest in search tended to be around 1,800 words, while listicles that ranked highest in search tended to be a little bit longer than that, more around 2,000 words. But whatever the length, your content is only successful if it's high quality, if it offers value by covering the topic with detail and depth, and if it's easy to scan. Because this is hard as a writer to say, but we know that readers don't read every word when they come to our pages on a website. So this chart shows the maximum amount of text users could read during an average visit to pages with different word counts. Usability expert Jacob Nielsen says that on average, users have time to read at most 28% of the words during an average visit, and 20% is more likely. And as you can see from this chart, there's a relationship between the number of words on the page and the percentage of those words the average person actually reads. Instead, what they do is scan, check out headers and subtitles, and look at images. So the longer your article is, the less likely it is somebody is going to read the whole thing. But that's why we use some techniques to make it easy for them to find the information that they're most interested in that 2,000 word article. So that is the next writing tip that we're talking about, is how to write that content that's easy to scan and accessible to anybody who comes to your website. So research shows that there are a few different things that affect how people scan and read web pages. When they scan, they kind of tend to jump around, skipping some content, backtracking a little bit. And it depends on the type of task that they have when they come to your site. Are they seeking specific information, or are they just here leisure reading? It depends on their level of motivation and focus. So how focused are they on the task at hand, and what other distractions might they have around them? And their personal characteristics. So this is something that as marketers, we can't really know, but maybe through our personas, we can better understand whether the people we're targeting tend to scan or whether they're very detail oriented. The other thing that we can't really control about how people read online is their assumptions from previous experience with digital content. However, as marketers, there are things that we can do to help control the way that people digest our content and the way that they scan those pages. So one is the page layout that we choose. And I'll talk more about that in just a minute. Another is the content type. And this is a little bit related to that page layout, right? When we talked about those listicles. If somebody's reading a listicle, they're probably going to scan the page a little differently than if they're reading a more traditional format. Using clear, noticeable headings and subheadings and special formatting techniques like bulleted lists and bold text helps draw your users' eyes to certain places on the page. And then the last factor you control that affects how people read is how complex the text is, how readable it is. So on pages with one big block of text, so if you were to write your content marketing article kind of similar to a traditional print piece with large gray blocks of text, this is the reading pattern you're going to see. users tend to skim the headline and then kind of run their eyes down the left side of the page. They're often going to skip sections of text based on how it flows in a column. And of course, that text flow varies based on the screen size. So unlike print, you can't control what the first words of the paragraph are because your reader might be on a mobile phone or they might be on a desktop computer with a huge monitor. So this means that users are likely to miss information they care about because they don't even realize it's there. Their eyes just kind of glaze right over it as they're skimming. On the other hand, when we as writers add subheadings to the article that kind of outline the major points on the page, we change that reading pattern. And that is when users have those subheadings, they scan the subheadings on the page in what we call a layer cake pattern. So they'll look for the subheading that indicates to them the content under here is what I want to learn more about, and then they'll read more in that section. So this is a really efficient reading pattern. Users save time by quickly identifying the content they're most interested in and then spending their time there. So some ways to make text easier to scan to encourage that layer cake pattern rather than that F-shaped pattern that you saw before is to use straightforward subheads to outline the main points and provide some visual structure. You've probably heard us talking about doing this on your foundational content, and it's just as important to do in the rest of your content with content marketing. Writing in short sentences and short paragraphs also really helps your readers. Research shows that when the average sentence length is 14 words, readers understand more than 90% of what they're reading. But when that sentence length extends to 43 words, comprehension drops to less than 10%. So that's a huge difference between the amount of information your readers are taking away when they close their browser window. Another way that you can make text easier to scan is to use bullets and numbered lists. And you can find a lot more in-depth writing tips on our website at geometric.com/copywriting if you'd like to dive deeper into general best practices for writing for the web. Now, it's just as important to keep your foundational content usable by as many people as possible as it is to keep your content marketing accessible. So this helps you reach the widest audience and comply with accessibility laws. So again, those headings and subheadings and use of plain language come into play here to meet those accessibility guidelines and make it easier for people to consume your content. Another important thing to consider as you're writing content for content marketing and making it accessible is the way that you are writing links when you're linking to other areas of your website. And we'll talk more about cross-linking from those content marketing articles in just a minute. But the big thing to remember is to never use click here as you're writing that link text. Always use a descriptive label that describes what the user will find when they click through. When it comes to multimedia content, there's another set of things that you need to do to make sure that your content is accessible to the most people possible. So anytime that you are using videos or podcasts, you need to make sure that you have a text alternative. And this is helpful for accessibility, of course, but it's also really great for your SEO because it gives that content for search engines to crawl to better understand what is in those videos or what is in those audio files. If you're creating infographics, make sure that you're presenting those in a way that is accessible to people who are not able to see the infographics, either because they have a disability or because maybe they live someplace with low bandwidth and they're not able to download that large file on their computer. So there are certain ways that you can build these infographics to make them accessible on your website. Or you could provide a written transcript of the information that's in that image. And the CDC has a great example of how they've done this to make infographics accessible to a wide audience. So this graphic that you're seeing on the screen here is about how vaccines are made. And so they even put links up here at the top so that if somebody comes to the site and they know they just want to read the text version, they can click that jump link and go down and see just the text. They have even described what the images are in this transcript so that people are getting the full experience of the infographic, even if they're not able to see the visual content that's been created. All right, so I mentioned the importance of writing good link content. So cross-linking is a really important part of your strategy with content marketing because we're pulling people in to our websites through content marketing. We want to help give them connections to that foundational content where it makes sense. And cross-linking is one way that we can do that. So here's a couple of examples of Content Hub articles, Content Marketing Hub articles that have incorporated really great cross-links to foundational content. So the one over here on the left comes from AllTrue Health Systems blog. The content article is what's the reason behind your sore throat. But up high on the article, they talk about right here in the second paragraph, if you're not quite sure what the reason is between that you have this sore throat, should you stay home? Should you get it checked out through telehealth? They go ahead and link that sentence right there, get it checked out through telehealth, over to their service line content about virtual visits. So if a user lands on this and then they think, yeah, I want to find out if I can just see a doctor from home, it's really easy and natural to click over and make that appointment. On the right, this example is about helping children overcome a fear of shots. We have a lot of vaccine and shot related articles in our examples today too. But in this example, UNC's Health Talk quoted one of their pediatricians in the article. And you can see that they've linked that doctor's name. And that link will take users to that doctor's profile where they can learn more about Dr. Pickens, you know, his background, whether he's accepting patients, et cetera. So just some basic guidelines as you're writing that link text. As with the rest of your content, use plain language and be concise whenever you can. Try to front load important words wherever possible so that, you know, those keywords, if you're working those into your link text, are at the front of the link text rather than the second half of it. And make it meaningful. So if someone is using a screen reader as they are reading your content, they could opt to just have the screen reader read just that link text. So make sure that it means something. If they read just the link text and none of the words around it, make sure that it makes sense and they have an idea of where that link would take them. This technique also benefits people who are sighted readers who are reading, because eye tracking studies have shown that users often look at links without reading any of the surrounding text. So now I'm going to go into a little bit more depth around two really important areas for your content marketing articles, and that is writing your headlines and your page descriptions or metadata. So writing headlines for content marketing is a little different than writing headlines in a traditional journalistic format. So if any of you are coming from a print background like I did, you probably would have written a headline like you see here up at the top that kind of summarizes the general point of the article. The thing with this headline though is it doesn't really give readers a reason to click through. It doesn't leave you wondering, what am I going to learn? What information is coming next? So we have a couple more examples here where we start to get to those questions, where we start to make some promises to readers. And this final one has more specifics to it. So not only is it making a promise of something the reader is going to learn, but it's making a very specific promise of what that reader is going to learn. And this is the type of headline that tends to work best with content marketing. As you're writing headlines, of course, you still want to follow some of those traditional headline writing rules. You know, we want to make sure that we're accurate, that we're being specific, and that we're speaking directly to the reader. So say using you instead of speaking in the third person. But rather than giving away a summary of the article, give them a reason to click. So promise tips or facts or strategies. And whenever relevant, use numbers or ask a question, because research has found that these two techniques tend to attract more clicks through to your article. In fact, a few years ago, BuzzSumo did a study to learn what makes effective headlines, and they looked at hundreds of thousands of headlines. And they looked at specific phrasing and found that there was a pattern. They found that headlines that had phrases like you're seeing here on the screen, this is what, or here are the, or X ways to, tended to rank more highly and get more clicks. So if you look at all these phrases, you'll see the thing they all have in common is they're making promises. They're promising to deliver something to the reader if they click through. Now, I know if you're looking at this, you might start thinking like some of these have a little bit of a questionable reputation, right? There's this idea of clickbait. And is this going to start to veer too much on sounding like clickbait? And we're here to tell you like it's okay, because when your article delivers on the promise in the headline, it's not clickbait. And you can create these really click-worthy headlines that aren't sensational, that aren't misleading, but are following these techniques of bringing people in and wanting them to learn more about the topic at hand. And here's 3 great examples from content marketing hubs that we have worked with here at Geometric, where they've used a why headline and a how-to headline and a question headline to pique readers' interest and draw them in. Those headlines are also going to feed your search results and the way that your article appears in search results. So the headline will generally become part of your page title or title tag. And as you know, I'm sure from working on the rest of your site, this is really one of the most important on-page SEO elements because it shows up in so many places. And it's generally pulled in as link text when people are sharing your content marketing article on other websites or on social media. So we recommend that you follow a general formula of using that article title, then your blog name, and then your organization name if that also fits in the recommended character counts for a page title. As you're writing those, also consider the meta description. So the meta description is a short paragraph that describes the page content, and it's kind of like the advertisement for your article. It's going to show up under that page title on search engine results. So try and make it a really compelling, descriptive sentence that makes sense out of content. And when you can, incorporate keywords because they're going to be bolded. So they're going to draw the user's eye.
So once you've written and published your content, the fun isn't quite over. There are other important pieces to remember, such as thoughtfully sharing and linking your content marketing across your site and through your social media channels. Integrating your content marketing throughout your site can help users from other related sections find your content hub. We'll walk through a few examples of how some organizations are successfully linking from important sections of their site. Cape Cod Healthcare here displays recent articles from its hub, Cape Cod Health News, right on its homepage for users to find when they land on that front page of their site. Sturdy Memorial Hospital in Massachusetts built a content marketing hub in the same CMS as their main site. The built-in functionality of their CMS Vital site makes it easy for them to display content marketing stories on their service line pages through that taxonomy, so site visitors can easily connect to trusted advice from their team of healthcare experts. This physician profile connects to articles that Dr. de Blasio wrote for the Cincinnati Children's blog. It's a great way to help people get to know your doctors and build that trust and credibility. Cincinnati Children's even chose to place those blog post connections above the traditional profile information that we're used to seeing on provider profiles. So having that more recent and relevant work allows patients to get a better understanding of him as a doctor and showcase his knowledge and expertise. This doctor's locations, education credentials, and professional publications still exist, and while they are still important, they are below the blog posts here, which is a unique approach. One thing that makes all those integrations easier is building the hub in the same CMS as your main site. We have an example of Adventist Healthcare here. who's based in Maryland. They had a popular health and wellness blog that was hosted on a WordPress site previously. And while WordPress was an effective solution for a while, Adventist Healthcare wanted to integrate the blog content more seamlessly into their main website, allowing the content to support more sophisticated journeys and ensure site visitors felt informed and connected at every step before and after their treatment. Since launching this in September 2020, traffic from their content marketing hub to their location pages has increased by 34%, and traffic to the services and doctor sections on their site by 21% each. So you've just released a wide array of brand new content. The next question is, how do you get people to read them and drive more traffic to your site? While your content hub is building authority from organic traffic or cross-linking throughout your site, you can maximize the reach of your content by promoting it also with email marketing, social, or other paid media. The cross-channel engagement can be an early indicator of what topics your users are interested in to help you further invest in to build a stronger authority in that given space. One common thing we see more often than not from healthcare sites and other industries and brands as well is a post that was probably made specifically for Facebook, but if you use a third-party tool to post or schedule your content, you might just click to also share that on Twitter and Instagram, for example. So the same blog post can be shared multiple times on different platforms, but I think a big piece to keep in mind is to make sure you tailor that message to each audience depending on where you're sharing that content. Your audience on Instagram is going to be a little different than your audience on Facebook, so you'll want to learn how to talk to those different audiences rather than at them all the same. This serves a dual purpose of helping you create engaging social media content for each platform and gaining a broader audience for your content marketing efforts. This is example because Instagram is a primarily visual platform. It's a great venue to have meaningful photos and videos that will show who you are as an organization and the value of the services that you offer. So I like this example from Wayne UNC Healthcare. They pulled a quote from a patient story on their site and created an eye-catching image rather than using the same image or stock photo over and over that they may have included on the article itself. This is a great strategy to get more mileage out of your patient stories, or in this case, any type of blog or content piece that you have. You can create accompanying graphics that pulls out a quote or a fact and share them sporadically to continually promote that piece of content. There are a lot of different ways to tailor your messaging. If you have loyal followers who follow you on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, they could easily get annoyed or dismissive of your posts if they see the same quote unquote copy and paste message across all those platforms, especially if they're all at the same time. So this is an example of a post from Cape Cod Healthcare titled 7 Ways to Become More Optimistic. They did a good job of using that listicle format and creating a headline that I know I'd be intrigued to read about. Their post copy is also unique and to the point, short and simple. As you're building out your editorial calendar for your different platforms, it's helpful to also think of variations of how you can introduce that content in the post copy, depending on where you're sharing it. So for example, you may have found that you get more engagement when you ask a question on Facebook. So you could share this article and ask your audience, did you know individuals with a greater degree of optimism are more likely to live longer, to encourage that commenting or engagement with that post. A good number of your subscribers most likely don't visit your website and check your blog every single day, so informing them of new content through your email newsletters is always a good idea. You can also segment your list to determine which of your subscribers will be interested in a specific blog post. Sending relevant content to your subscribers would also increase the likelihood of them opening the email and consuming your content. An example here from Cape Cod Healthcare again is this issue sent just before the 4th of July holiday included links to timely summer stories such as a listicle on ways to avoid accidents and injuries while on vacation and the importance of wearing supportive shoes, not flip-flops, in the summer. This issue did a great job of resharing previously published seasonal stories that are still relevant in 2021. This is also where an established editorial calendar or content governance can be really helpful too. It's no surprise that up-to-date, fresh content is favored by search engines and users alike. You can take advantage of this by modifying your headline or updating the actual content or the call to action. And tying back to the keyword research process, your keyword strategy shouldn't be static either. You'll also want to revisit your keywords to ensure you're up to date with user search trends, and then you can naturally optimize with any keywords that may have emerged or changed since you first published the article. Another big question we hear a lot is how often should I be publishing content or posting on Facebook? And I know I hate to say it too, but it really does depend. There's not one perfect formula or a hard and fast rule about how frequently you should post. You don't want to bombard your audience with content to the point where they no longer want to engage or follow you. However, we do know that users' feeds are flooded with posts from other organizations, their friends and family as well. So you want to share content often enough to ensure that it doesn't get buried. What we can tell you is consistency is key. So sharing content on a consistent basis can help your audience stay engaged, but that consistency is different depending on your organization, your audience, and your engagement. So you'll want to continue to analyze, experiment, and look for patterns around what types of posts get the most engagement on whatever platform you're sharing those on. So do you tend to get the most response when you post photos or videos, a short or long post, a question or a statement? Do people respond to the same kinds of posts on your Facebook page as they do on your Instagram account? All things to keep in mind and stay on top of as you are continuing to share and promote your content.
All right. Thank you, Anne and Kelly. A wonderful presentation and an excellent example of content marketing as well. We do have a couple of questions that have already been submitted. If you have questions still, haven't gotten a chance to put them in, please do. If we run out of time, someone will follow up with you after the presentation. So quickly, just a question or two. We've one, our VP has become really focused on conversions. Now, I want to be doing more content marketing where it might not always be all about immediate conversions. How do I sell that up the food chain?
Yeah, I think that goes back to that overall patient journey of where that content marketing and that foundational content might intersect. You want to be present at all those phases of that patient journey, not just at the end of the funnel, but nurturing those long-term relationships for your patients or your potential patients. And I think there are still other key performance indicators that you can measure to show the success of your content marketing. It might not be new appointments, but brand awareness is a huge aspect of that too. So looking at engagement and shares on social media, or if there are other calls to action that you can incorporate into your content marketing, still showing the importance of those as well.
Fantastic. We have someone else who I think is looking out there at some of the big examples of content marketing that get held up all the time, and just look at the fact they have huge teams. They're asking, how big a team do we need to really do this well?
That is a great question, and there are so many factors. We have worked with healthcare organizations with teams of lots of different sizes, and I think it depends on your goals and your skill sets and your partners. So we covered a lot of different aspects of content marketing today. And this isn't even the whole range of things. So I would suggest that you look at the people on your team and say, like, what areas do you want to specialize in? And where do you have some opportunities to bring someone else in to assist your team? So maybe you have a great team of writers who really love to write and have the resources to write, but you need some help with that keyword research aspect. And that could be something that you outsource.